Replace Jen Psaki with a capable, conscientious professional. If the United States is to continue in having the confidence of its people and credibility with other nations, all who represent it, especially in the public eye before cameras, must do so with adequate poise, grace, diplomacy and transparency. There should never be even a hint of unpreparedness, indecision, confusion, deception or condescension. We the people demand that the White House answer our concerns truthfully and respectfully, with consistent consideration for all issues had, and common courtesy, in reasonable congeniality given to those making inquiries. Regardless of the nature of the question or the affiliations of the questioner. We tire of the indifference, insolence, and downright contempt demonstrated by Ms. Psaki's attitude, whether said was presented only to her colleagues on the opposite side of the political divide or the American public itself. We understand that in large part she is only relaying the sentiments of the administration that hired her from its bully pulpit, and the friction between her and us more than one half of the electorate would come from a fundamental disagreement on how our democracy should function. However, we still contend that a more suitable person can be installed into her position, thus giving more people greater assurance. When she announced plans to leave her post as press secretary for a quieter life at home, many immediately welcomed the expected change, but sadly her best promise made did not come to pass. Please see this video playlist for an audio-visual reminder of her, sometimes deliberate, shortcomings. YouTube.com results awkward Psaki Fox. Our specific objections to her presence and/or behavior are as follows. Jen Psaki is given an inordinate amount of time and leeway to express what the president should be saying in person more often. Said creates the appearance of a shadow government, or the marionette and his puppeteer. Confessed to strongly discouraging the President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, from taking other than pre-scripted questions. Nypost.com 2021-05-06 Jen Psaki admits she tells Biden don't take questions. Circled back, again and again, when she should have been ready to furnish the administration's answers to ordinary and foreseen prompts. YouTube.com results circle back Psaki was originally a chief commentator with the news network, CNN, which is now, and would have been, mired in scandal, regarding the sexual harassment and additional abuse of employees, and that of other adults having contact with its personalities and staffers. The exploitation, molestation, rape of children by its members, and continual and well-founded charges of cronyism, and tabloid, yellow, journalism. Publicly mocked the existence and/or role of the Space Force, an established branch of the U.S. military, despite recent discoveries of space-related and advanced technology-related tactical maneuvers made by the adversaries of the U.S. Admitted to, but quickly sped past the fact, thereby glossing it over, that Communist China was given access to our energy grid by the Biden administration. See the video. Hunter Biden directly facilitated China's investments in our infrastructure through the firms of Rosemont Seneca, Bondhai Industrial, Harvest Fund, tinyurl.com or Usuax. Became an apologist for the Afghani terrorist regime, the Taliban, after the Biden administration's embarrassingly disastrous and arguably traitorous withdrawal operation from that seized country, which abruptly left hundreds or thousands of helpless American citizens and Afghani allies behind. Mr. Biden's related speech from his 2008 campaign run. See the video in Ms. Psaki's puzzling pro-Taliban quote. dailymail.co.uk Video News Video 2,479,167 Psaki says Taliban need assess role. Community. Minimize the extent of inflation suffered in the U.S. economy, with ever-rising fuel prices, while citing trivial and in fact meaningless and temporary cost decreases such as a 16-cent savings on hot dog buns for the 4th of July. trivialized the embargo-like effects of the supply chain crisis, caused primarily by the Biden administration, which resulted in the stalled or failed delivery of vital goods, to include food routed to grocery stores and supplies headed to drug stores. See the video and see the video. Continues in her overreach to insist upon the mandate that children wear stifling masks throughout the lengthy days spent in school, and the practice of having them eat lunch outside in frigid, pneumonia-inducing weather, despite all of the scientific evidence, published by virologists, epidemiologists, sociologists, speech pathologists and psychologists, to contradict said. She made rationalization of her intractable stance with the statement that her rising kindergartner loves to play the part of the subjugated. See the video and see the video. Questions and usurps the authority of the private physician, and denies the bodily autonomy of the patient, through the unwavering coercion that everyone be vaccinated, regardless of conflicting study data, individuals' adverse medical histories, or contraindicated conditions. Pronounces discipline-specific advice given by qualified, credentialed professionals in fields other than her own to be misinformation, simply because it contradicts her own or government-issued declarations. She effectively negates the necessary and age-old right to seek the second opinion. See the video. Convenes with Google, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, to lead an unprecedented effort to censor or bar speech and/or stem the flow of information which was, before her interference, always readily available to the public under First Amendment provisions. This establishes that the said entities are in fact publishers as opposed to third-party communication platforms. See the video. She does not credit adults with the ability to discern for themselves, even with the mitigation of provided disclaimers or warnings attached to published media. Misstated, with a likely purpose, the content of a supposedly conciliatory phone call between President Biden and a key member of the press, Fox News' Peter Doocy, after Mr. Biden publicly referred to the reporter as a stupid son of ABTCH. Mr. Biden and Mr. Doocy had previous run-ins in which the correspondent pushed the envelope in what was asked. Biden, by all reports other than Psaki's, said, "It's nothing personal, pal." She reiterated it is, but Peter spoke to this, the president called him, he conveyed to him that it was nothing personal, man, and also acknowledged that all of you are going to ask him a range of questions. So I think that speaks for itself. When a man is addressed as pal, it usually indicates the speaker's hostility toward him, just as the address, lady, is more often deemed to be an expression of the other party's annoyance or disdain for the said woman. Habitually resorts to bashing the previous administration and its president for so-called failures or faux pas made in the past in defense against rightful objections had by the public to the Biden administration's current policies or procedures and their aftereffects, an article detailing one such incident. Breitbart.com Health 2021-1201 Watch Jen Psaki falsely claims Trump told people to inject bleach in the fact-checking on a certain claim Psaki makes. Breitbart.com Politics 2020-10-15 Fact check Joe Biden repeats false bleach in your arm claim and the medical technology discussed. Bioworld.com Articles 434,719 UV light respiratory catheter for COVID-19 from Cedars-Sinai seeking emergency use. Defends the purchase of the nation's subsidized COVID-19 rapid tests from Communist China, as opposed to buying from U.S.-based manufacturers who suffered from the economic downturn but are technically equipped to handle said orders. Nipost.com 2022-02-02 Psaki defends buying COVID rapid tests from Chinese company. Gaslights the public by disavowing knowledge of a severe spike in crime in Democrat-run cities due to implementation of experimental but enabling progressive policies such as defunding the police and lowering bail, with the alternation of making heightened emphasis on the need to quell gun violence, as though the involved firearms fire themselves. She mocked conservative network coverage of what has been documented by official sources outside of the media, and, of course, already observed by the citizens in said areas. She made light of the frightening insecurity and general suffering of hundreds or thousands of victims. See the video and see the video. Satirized the failure of the highly opposed Voting Rights Act, telling misinformed but nonetheless demoralized Democrats to soothe their fears or profound disappointment with a margarita and kickboxing. WashingtonExaminer.com News White House Watch Psaki suggests kickboxing and margaritas for those upset over failed legislation. Defamed Democratic Senators Manchin and Sinema for voting by conscience, according to the will of their moderate constituency, as opposed to taking on the radical progressive agenda and reckless spending contained in the $3.5 to $5 trillion Build Back Better bill. NationalReview.com Corner Biden White House blasts Manchin. Is perceived by an increasing number in her audience to be disingenuous, or a liar in the outright, or severely out of touch. We would suggest placing the current Deputy Press Secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, into Ms. Psaki's role. In addition to signing this one, please see and acknowledge a similar petition put forth earlier by another petitioner here. Change.org Department of Justice get Jen Psaki to circle back. Thank you for your attention to this matter.